Alright, everyone. You got Kosher here, the Crazy Cohen, also known by my real name, Joseph D'Angelo. How's everybody doing today? We got a quick little video here somebody wanted me to do on pi and phi Fibonacci sequence, inverse Fibonacci sequence, and some different MQ Pro sciences and engineering stuff. So first of all, we're going to cut off this. We've got a continuous steady line of placeholders, one after another. There's no ability for us to fit anything in there. It would create a wavelength that's completely straight with no frequency whatsoever. But if we, we start taking out a few digits here and there, we start putting points in, this and that, then we can start creating a wavelength just like this. Where if we had two opposing wavelengths, identical to this, two inverse dielectric opposites, they would fit into each other and create an alternating current, which is the way that most transistors actually work, is they end up just putting an impedance in the way of the current, causing it to transist and become an alternating current, which creates the phase shift on the other side. It's pretty cool. Anyways, so yeah, with phi, we've got some slight openings. The openings aren't big, they're small, right? And the placeholders, positions, end up taking up lots of spaces. I just wrote that out there in two different ways. Some people don't end up seeing it right away with the numbers, and I'll be talking or writing messages, and they think I'm just retarded or crazy. They don't understand what's going on. So I did this little, squiggly waveform thing here for them and that stuff. Pi ends up being a much faster rate of incline, and between the left-hand rule and the left-hand rule, the right-hand rule, left-hand rule goes down, right-hand rule goes up. I wish I could show you right now, but you can go look at some of my videos on MQ process engineering and sciences. Again, if we were to turn around and take phi and fold it over itself, the positions that we actually end up getting available are that of phi itself. So if we, or not phi, pi itself. If we end up flipping phi over on itself, folding it over on itself, forget the numbers and just consider them as placeholders for a second, we'll end up getting pi. Same thing if we curl, pi over in on itself, we'll end up getting phi. And the difference between these two ways of doing this is one ends up creating the golden ratio and one ends up creating inverse golden ratio. Is it literally by this folding over process? We don't even need the math. Like, yeah, we can put words to the math and description to the math, or we can make math for the description. But in no way is the math absolutely a necessity. You can fold these things over in your head without the math, or visually, or in a simulation if you really wanted to. So, pi and phi end up being inverse opposite waveforms of each other, which, because they resist and attract each other, cause a corkscrewing, which we end up seeing here all over the universe. Is one of the things that when I'm looking for stuff in science, I'm not trying to make up new stuff. I'm just going out and looking for the stuff that's already there. And if it's there and it's real, like a hammer is real, well, I can take a hammer and I can scale it up to the largest scale or the smallest scale. It's a real thing. I can move it around. I can bring it from one realm of science to another realm of science and still do jobs. But if it's not a real thing, I can't do that. So whenever I'm looking for, ways to fill in my blanks and understanding, I'm always looking for things in the real world. If we take phi and we put pi over top of it, and we imagine them both as two separate waveforms, we'll end up getting this sort of pattern here, where it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, as it goes up and down, 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 up and down. But this really extenuates out how the waveform is shaped over longer and longer in periods of time. It's not just showing us, every second, placeholder, there's going to be a placeholder missing, or every third, or every fourth. It's not a completely symmetrical rate of incline, but this ends up being, pi ends up being actually smooth, rational, and symmetrical, even with its asymmetrical base. Whereas phi ends up ending up asymmetrical, even with its symmetrical base. Kind of a brain screwer with there. Now, this is one way to look at it if we were to put it on top of each other, is the waveform going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But there's another way to look at it, which is the 3D corkscrew, where I don't know why it did that to us. So let's just fix that up. If we put it there, can you understand how things twist around in the universe? Pi is going to go up, and it's going to want to go up fast, right? It's going to want to run away from phi, and phi is going to want to pull down very slow, but it also wants to pull down on pi, which kind of keeps it in balance while it goes down, but in a much more spatially elongated way, whereas pi wants to shoot straight up. And this is the same thing that it is with, light and sound. We'll get to that in a minute there. But I just wanted to show you these little visuals because it seems like you guys have a lot of difficulty understanding some of this stuff. And wanted to help you out. I don't know what to call these. I guess you could call them transmutation laws. You've got pi over phi equals the golden rule. Golden rule over inverse golden rule equals pi. Fold phi on itself and get pi over phi equals golden rule. Fold pi on itself and get phi over pi equals inverse golden rule. Now, the difference between inverse golden rule creation and inverse golden rule destruction is whether or not this asymmetrical swing ends up amounting to a symmetrical bond at the end of it. That's really the big difference. If it doesn't line up perfectly symmetrically out through the asymmetry of the inverse golden rule, what you'll end up having is explosion or implosion. It'll be one or the other. Really simply, look at my retarded elementary ass. If we were just to break down MQ Pro Sciences to, one or two basic, laws or concepts. Principle plus attribute equals manifestation. Manifestation inverted equals generation of manifestation. Or another way of saying it is new generation of manifestation. Now we were talking about the left-hand rule, right-hand rule, going up, going down with phi and pi, and we're going to go down here to formulas for sound and light. I found some people find this difficult to understand. I'm not really understanding why. Sound wants to divide itself out in 3 dimensions spatially. If we were to turn around and take a circle and divide it in 24 dimensions, it should end up being 8, which would end up being 4. Alright, we reduce it down. It would end up being 3 by 1. So when I say that sound and light either divide or multiply at a rate of 1 dimension by 3, I mean it literally. dimensions are, if we were to take a circle and break it down into 4, we would have 4 separate rational little pieces of pi, little triangles. So that's what dimensions end up meaning. Now these dimensions, because space is a wavelength in itself, it ends up being a current sheet. It's stretchy, like a slinky. It wants to contract, but it also allows you to expand it if you apply force. All right. So we end up having, this is a rate of induction across those dimensions. What the actual speed that light or sound ends up traveling is completely dependent on what's going on in the surrounding area, such as if there's large amounts of gravity, is there stars in the area, is there thick medium or is there thin medium, or are we out out in the middle of space, or we're dealing with water or rock. But in either case, sound wants to divide itself into the medium at a rate of 3 to 1 or 1 to 3. So every one temporal dimension that it travels, it divides itself into 3 spatial dimensions. Light ends up traveling every 1 dimension. Spatially, it ends up multiplying itself over 3 dimensions temporally, which ends up giving us an induction rate of 3, or with sound, a deduction rate of 0.33333, and that'll go on forever and ever and ever and ever. Now, the left-hand rule, right-hand rule. I can't really show you because this little thing won't show me my face or my camera. I'll just do the screenshot thing here for us. Really, if you were to turn around and do the Vulcan, like live long and prosper thing with one hand, and then do the inverse with the other hand, which ends up meaning you got your thumb, and then you take your index finger and your middle finger and you put them together, and then you hold your ring finger and your pinky finger apart. You end up getting 4 instead of 3, right? And it ends up being the inverse opposite rule, so it goes, we say 1 to 4, but it's really more like 3 1 2, 3 1 2, 3 1 2, 3 1 2. It starts high and then goes low and then starts to go up again before it goes low again, whereas the right hand rule is a consistent, I'm going up, and then if it doesn't keep on going up in that steady rate, then it stops. I'm going up, and then it stops. I'm going up, and then it stops. And it'll either go up, and then just keep on holding check marks here forever. But it won't do what the left-hand rule does, where it goes down and up and up and down and down and up and up and down and down and up and down as it goes up. Which is actually the effect that ends up causing gravity, is that wobbling. Is because the electromagnetic field, instead of being continuous and straight like this, we end up having the field interjecting with matter like this on a spatial vector instead of a completely temporal vector, where the temporal vector would be the green line right through the middle. The current or the electromagnetic field dielectrics interacting with matter would end up being the black line, traveling back and forth like that. I forget what it's called. Buddy brought it up in theoretical physics earlier. Yeah, but they got everything wrong if you have theoretical physics, so it's really hard to do physics in any way. Anyways, I think that's all. I think I covered all my bases here, at least for this basic video of, pi phi, golden rule, inverse golden rule, Fibonacci sequence, inverse Fibonacci sequence. And I gave you the basics of MQ Pro Engineering. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment box, and don't forget to hit the like button, share it out, and if you think that the quality of work is good, make sure you donate. Thanks again.